Audiobook by Fate's Reader. Don't forget to subscribe and like the channel for more epic series. Drop your recommended novel below. We love to know what you want to hear next. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 341, Heart Pain. Tao Master Lin Xian was the first to come back to his senses. He raised his hand to stop Qin Mu and said sincerely, "Cult Master Qin must hold his step. You have brought this golden book forward not to just let little Tao read for 3 days. You're trying to hook me. Since you have already thrown the bait and I'm already hooked, why not sit down and discuss it in detail?" The old Taoists all nodded and said in unison, "Discuss. There's nothing that can't be discussed. We are all people who cultivate Tao, all Qi cultivators, so there's nothing we can't discuss. The righteous path or the devil path are still both paths. We are one family." Tao Master Lin Xian invited Qin Mu to take a seat, and an old Taoist nun immediately went to boil some tea, which she served in a moment. Qin Mu drank it and smiled. "Wonderful tea. It's just a little inferior to that of high heavens. What kind of tea is this? Can I have some?" "Can." The old Taoist nun grinned, revealing her few remaining teeth. "This is our Tao sect's heavenly green precious fragrance. Only tea leaves that are produced by a tree that grows at Jade Void Spring can be called heavenly green precious fragrance. There are only 3 such trees, and only a few pounds are produced each year. How many pounds does Cult Master Qin want?" Qin Mu placed the herb basket down and invited Village Chief to come out. He poured tea for him and asked, "Grandpa Village Chief, could you get used to this taste? Heavenly green precious fragrance has a light yet long-lasting aftertaste. So of course I would get used to it." Village Chief smiled. "Not even the Emperor gets to drink this tea. In that case, let's have a pound first so we can drink this new tea at the beginning of next spring. Bring us 1 pound. I want the best quality one," Qin Mu said to the old Taoist nun. She hurried away and came back with a huge bag of tea after a moment. Qin Mu put it away and looked around before saying, "Tao sect sure is poor." An old Taoist hurriedly said, "We are not poor. We still had some property, but it was stolen by someone." "Cult Master Qin, your golden book." "Oh, it's from my old Qin family." Qin Mu placed the golden book to the side and said, "I and Tao sect have some grudges, but I always wanted to come to apologize. However, I couldn't find the time. This trip today is to let Tao Master Lin Xian read the book and hopefully resolve this grudge between us." "Cult Master Qin, it's enough," Tao Master Lin Xian said firmly. "Grudges can be resolved, but the differences between our teachings are not the same thing. Even if we resolve our grudges today, we will fight again in the future because of our teachings, and more grudges will be created. Cult Master Qin, it's still better for us to talk about this golden book." Qin Mu exclaimed in his heart at this thorough judgment and said, "Tao Master Lin's eyesight sure is deep. I'm truly amazed. In that case, let us talk about this golden book. It records 3 techniques which are Magpie Bridge, Mysterious Guide, and Divine Crossing. They are techniques used to connect the 7th divine treasure, the Divine Bridge. Everyone should be able to guess the reason why I brought this book forward. It indeed has techniques to patch the Divine Bridge." Numerous old Taoists and Taoist nuns' hearts were shaken. They were so excited they found it hard to control themselves. Patching the Divine Bridge and breaking through the last obstacle to become a god was the dream of who knew how many people. Even the experts of Tao sect were not exempt. Cultivating into immortals meant nothing for the people of Tao sect. It was merely a kind of excuse to console oneself. Immortal was a title that came from Little Jade Capital, with which the experts of Tao sect frequently interacted. The people there posed themselves as immortals, living on a mountain away from worldly affairs. They were even more tranquil and lofty than people of Tao sect. When the old Taoists and Taoist nuns took the first look at the golden book, they were immediately shaken by the secrets of Magpie Bridge. They had immediately become aware that this was a technique to patch the Divine Bridge, and it was extremely intricate, which was why they didn't sleep, eat, or even rest for 3 days. Once Qin Mu repeated what they thought, that this was 3 techniques to patch the Divine Bridge so it would connect to the celestial heavens, the experts of Tao sect had an urge to snatch the book back. However, Looking at that armless and legless elder who could still drink tea at the side, they calmed down. 3 days ago, this elder who popped out from the basket had only given them a look, yet they had seen the extremes of sword skills. When they saw the gaze of this elder, they felt like they were seeing a sword attacking toward them. They could neither avoid nor defend against this attack, so they had all averted their eyes instead. They were all legends of Dao sect, so even though they weren't at the level of old Dao master, they were all people of the cult master level with superior sword skills. Yet this elder made them feel that if they snatched the book by force, they would definitely die a miserable way. Dao master Lin Xian's gaze flickered. His vital qi burst forth and arranged a model of heavenly cycle stars with algebra. Cult master, please solve this. Qin Mu smiled, knowing that his attainments in algebra were being tested. If he knew nothing about algebra, Dao sect could then raise their initial price. If Qin Mu had extremely high attainments and let Dao sect know they were dispensable, only then would he make them willing to assist him. This is the technique of great heavenly cycle stars heaven chess transformation. Qin Mu's fingers moved and dotted here and there on the heavenly cycle stars while he said rapidly, Great heavenly cycle has 365 stars, while the 366th one is hidden inside. It's Celestial Emperor Jade Emperor constellation. You didn't label Jade Emperor for me to solve the Jade Emperor's star number, right? Just as he said that, Qin Mu drew a star on the great heavenly cycle of stars with vital qi. Jade Emperor's star number is right here. The hearts of all old Taoists and Taoist nuns in Jade Void Monastery shook, and they all looked at one another. Heavenly Devil Cult Master's attainments in algebra are extremely high. He solved it so fast. He managed to calculate Jade Emperor's star number so quickly, so the technique in the Golden Book shouldn't be too difficult for him. All he needs is time. Dao Master Lin Xian dispersed his vital qi and asked in doubt, Since Cult Master Qin can solve it, why did he still come to our Dao sect? I can solve it by myself, but it would take a very long time. I can't wait that long, Qin Mu said with a resolute expression. I also need the experts of Dao sect to help me calculate the space algebra model for a divine canon. These two matters require many experts that are proficient in algebra. If Dao sect is willing to assist me, then it will receive copies of the 3 techniques to patch the divine bridge and the space algebra. In Jade Void Monastery, everyone took in a deep breath as the place became silent. Qin Mu put away the Golden Book and rose. If Dao Master Lin Xian is interested, there's no harm in waiting in Imperial College. I need to take a trip to Little Jade Capital and invite a few experts who are proficient in algebra from there. That's right, Dao Master Lin. Could you gift me a computational canon of Mysterious Lady? Small matter, Dao Master Lin Xian said and passed one over. Qin Mu put it in his Taotai sack and expressed his thanks. He then said profoundly, Your master, old Dao Master, is also at Little Jade Capital, right? He doesn't have much time left. If we fixed these techniques of patching the divine bridge, Dao Master Lin Xian's body trembled, but he didn't say anything. Qin Mu walked out of Jade Void Monastery and called Xianxia and Xianxia, who were waiting outside, to go down the mountain. Dao Master Lin Xian let out a shaky breath and looked at the old Taoists in Jade Void Monastery. All of them were looking back at him as well. Dao Master Lin Xian suddenly rose and said solemnly, Gather all the people that are proficient in algebra. We will go down the mountain and head for the capital. Think thrice, Dao Master, an old Taoist immediately said. Dao Master really wants to work together with Heavenly Devil Cult? Those people have the ambition of wild wolves, and the Heavenly Devil Cult Master of this generation is extremely talented. He also harbors evil intentions, having killed who knows how many of our senior and junior brothers in the capital city. Another old Taoist nun said, Heavenly Saint Cult's Cult Master Qin is indeed much smarter and more ruthless than Li Tianqing, so he's harder to deal with as well. He most likely brought the Golden Book to lure us into a trap. Our Dao sect and Heavenly Devil sect's grudge is deep, and this Heavenly Devil Cult Master is fearful. He's not a kind person. Dao Master, please think thrice. We must go to the capital, and we must get the method to become a god. Dao Master Lin Xian brushed his sleeves and said indifferently, Fellow senior brothers, say no more. Cult Master Qin is right. Even if we don't assist him, he can solve the contents of the Golden Book by himself. What's more, Imperial College and Little Jade Capital also have people that are proficient in algebra, so calculating the space algebra model is merely a matter of time. If our Dao sect is a step behind, we will slowly get farther and farther away, until we will be surpassed by Heavenly Devil Cult. We will fall in time. He turned around to pack his luggage. Our Dao sect requires its own God, a living God to protect it. In this world of huge changes, a sacred ground that doesn't change will have no way to survive. Numerous old Taoists didn't say anything and packed their own luggage. They picked out the outstanding disciples and prepared to head to the capital. Suddenly, an old Taoist let out a world-shaking scream. God damn it! Who has stolen the leader's horsetail whisk? Another angry voice sounded out from another side of the mountain. Who ate my fish? Who stole my mountain and river screen? That's my precious treasure that I worked on for many years. Who has seen my Universe Bay? It's a fake mountain that I refined after taking Universe Bay away. My hairpin was placed on the dressing table. Who took it? Below Jade Void Mountain, Qin Mu passed by the mountain gate. The old Taoist guarding the mountain was standing at the straw hut. He returned Qin Mu's clothes to him and asked suspiciously, Old thief god has stolen our Dao sect's treasure again? Qin Mu took back the clothes and shook his head. I didn't see him on the mountain. The old Taoist stamped his feet and said, Crap! If you saw him, he could still be lazing around somewhere. But if you didn't see him, then that old scoundrel could have flipped the graves of our ancestors over and over again. When he was done, the old Taoist called the big yellow dog over and led it up the mountain. The big yellow dog was incomparably nimble as it jumped to the top. There, he sniffed around and began barking, causing a havoc. If we don't go now, the experts of Dao sect will slaughter their way down. Village chief who was in the herb basket warned. Qin Mu came back to his senses and hurried the dragon Qilin. Run quickly! The dragon Qilin immediately sprinted away toward the majestic Kunlun mountain range. After running for a long time, they finally left the Kunlun mountain range. With a worried expression, Qin Mu said, I wonder if Grandpa Cripple was able to make it out. Before he could finish saying this, he saw Cripple sitting in the shade of a huge tree in front of them. He seemed to have been waiting for a long while. Qin Mu was dumbfounded and wanted to say something, but Cripple suddenly leaped to his feet as though fire was burning his buttocks. He scrambled away and disappeared into thin air. A voice then came from the distance. Moor, you guys shall go to Little Jade Capital first. I'll be right there. A huge dog landed nearby, and sitting on the back of it were a few old Taoists. Both male and female ones were full of killing intent. The huge dog sniffed at the ground, and clouds grew under its feet. It rose into the sky and chased in the direction Cripple had left. Its speed was extremely fast, and it moved like flickering lights and passing shadows. Qin Mu was stunned. He looked at the dragon Qilin with a pleasant expression. Fatty dragon, can you catch up to that dog? The dragon Qilin shook his head. That fellow runs very fast. I can't catch up to him. It can run faster than you by eating shit, Qin Mu said in a pained voice. How dare you still have the face to eat spirit pills for all your meals? Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 342. Visitors from High Heavens. Feelings like poems. The dragon Qilin wagged his tail and fawned. I'm more majestic than it. Qin Mu was speechless. How was riding a huge meatball with a tail majestic? He ate better than anyone, and it was still fine if he couldn't outrun the green bull. But now he couldn't even catch up to a dog. Cult Master, do you dislike me already? The dragon Qilin turned his head around with watery eyes. You must dislike me, right? Qin Mu snorted and his brows softened. No. Another few months, and it's New Year again, so how can I dislike you? How about I give you 2 buckets of Scarlet Fire Spirit pills each day? You can eat more, plump yourself up. The dragon Qilin shuddered, and Xianxia climbed onto his head. She carefully grabbed a tuft of hair on the back of his ear so that she wouldn't fall off. She whispered in his ear, Don't eat anymore. You will be slaughtered for New Year. The dragon Qilin spoke in a sob to her, his voice soft. I know. I just can't control myself. Little Jade Capital was in the sky far from Dao sect. With the dragon Qilin's speed, he would need to run for 10 days to reach the place. Qin Mu made a rocking chair and secured it on the dragon Qilin's wide back. He then placed village chief on it. The one good thing about the dragon Qilin being fat was that he could run steadily, so there was no worry that village chief would fall off. Xianxia sometimes drank tea with him, while Qin Mu would go down to buy spirit herbs when they passed by cities to continue with the treatment of her injuries. She also didn't break her promise and imparted the 10,000 soul nature technique of True Heaven Palace to Qin Mu. 10,000 soul nature technique had the meaning of all things having spirit and soul. The cultivation method of West Earth's True Heaven Palace was different from the cultivation method of Middle Earth. Its way was slightly similar to that of Dao sect, as they were both close to nature. However, Dao sect studied mathematical reasoning thoroughly. One of Dao follows the nature, whereas True Heaven Palace focused more on the interaction with all things, materializing the soul. The technique of True Heaven Palace cultivated an incomparably strong power of interaction, granting all things soul. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and felt that this technique was more suitable for women to cultivate. Women's thoughts were more meticulous, and their perception was keener, so they naturally surpassed men in this. If he cultivated it, he could achieve something, but it wouldn't be of much use to him. The thing that was useful, however, was the method of creation that laid within it. Granting all things soul was a kind of creation, and compared to the 7 writings of creation in great educational heavenly devil scriptures, 10,000 soul nature technique was more direct and also more intricate. There were things he could derive from it. This technique from True Heaven Palace doesn't look like something from this era. When Xianxia had taught Qin Mu 10,000 soul nature technique, village chief was also listening to it, analyzing what he heard. Palace Master Xiong, your technique from True Heaven Palace seems a little ancient and is different from the techniques of founding Emperor era. When was True Heaven Palace founded? Xianxia shook her head. I don't know about this. The moment I became the Palace Master, you family rebelled and seized the power, so I didn't have the time to look at the records of my True Heaven Palace. However, I know that it's extremely ancient and it goes back to the dim and distant past. I had once heard Nai Kuei say that our True Heaven Palace is even older than the sacred grounds in Middle Earth. Her expression dimmed, but soon her spirits rose up again. If both of you could assist me in taking back the control of True Heaven Palace, I would let the 2 of you read the books in the palace to your heart's content. Village chief yawned and closed his eyes to sleep. Xianxia looked at Qin Mu, but he was playing with Xianxia. He used his brush to draw a few birds, who then flew out. The birds circled around the little girl while chirping, making Xianxia giggle non-stop. Xianxia sighed and didn't say anything else. It was obvious that Qin Mu and village chief had no intention of helping her seize back the power. Going to True Heaven Palace was troublesome, and she couldn't take out anything of value, so the 2 of them were not interested. The only method left for me now is to assume the position of directorate in Eternal Peace Empire's Imperial College, hoping to discuss this with Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor in detail. Her gaze flickered as she pondered this. However, from the actions of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, after he conquers the prairie, he probably won't stop expanding. Even the icy plains in the north would find it hard to stop him. Could West Earth be one of his targets as well? If she discussed it with him, she would probably be asking the tiger for his skin. She was hesitant about it, but when she remembered how Xiong family was left with only the 2 of them, she steeled her heart. You family exterminated my Xiong family, so I have to take revenge. And so what if I show the wolf into my house? I must take revenge. Qin Mu took a glance at her. Women were the ones in charge of West Earth, and from her methods, Xianxia was indeed not suitable to be the princess of True Heaven Palace. She didn't have enough boldness and capability. The reason why Qin Mu didn't want to help her was because she lacked the ability, so even if she regained the control, she wouldn't have a firm seating. Since she was a strong practitioner who had opened Divine Bridge Divine Treasure, she had enough strength. But to control an entire sacred ground was not as simple as relying on one's personal strength. The fall into ruin of Xiong family and its extermination soon after Xianxia ascended to the position of palace master was enough to prove that she was not qualified to be a palace master. When Qin Mu had recommended for her to go teach at Imperial College, it was to give her the chance to meet Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, who had the ambition and capability. If Xianxia wanted his hand to take revenge, she would have to pay a price that was big enough. But all of this was unrelated to Qin Mu. Suddenly, village chief opened his eyes and looked into the distance in astonishment. Qin Mu's heart moved slightly. Village chief, what's wrong? Someone is inviting me to battle. An old opponent. Village chief raised his eyebrows but said, "Ignore them. We are almost at Little Jade Capital. We will talk when we get there." Inviting you to battle? Qin Mu stared blankly. Inviting village chief to battle? Aren't they afraid of dying? At that moment, Xianxia, who was in Little Jade Capital, suddenly rose and looked into the distance. An expression of doubt came onto his face. Old Dao Master and Old Rulai were also at this place, so they could all sense it when they looked in the direction of Qingmen Pass. These auras are quite strong, a blind man propping himself on a bamboo cane said in astonishment. Old Butcher, can you sense it? Butcher was currently using a pig slaughtering knife to cut his nails. He raised his eyebrows. These people have some ability. Their origins make me very curious. Yu Li and the rest of the girls didn't sense any peculiarity and asked in bewilderment, "Young master, what's wrong?" "My masters came down," Xianxia said in astonishment. "So many gods came down. Did something happen in high heavens?" Old Rulai smiled. "Young Master Su, the aura that they are releasing seems to be challenging someone. It shouldn't be high heavens that are in trouble." Xianxia pondered over it. Challenging someone? That someone can only be an expert like Old Human Emperor or Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. The latter may be known as the number one man under gods, but he still doesn't have the qualifications for it, so it can only be Old Human Emperor. Hermit Qingyu, sorry for disturbing you over the past few days. Thank you for the hospitality. I shall take my leave now. Hermit Qingyu tried to have him stay. Why doesn't young Master Su stay for a few more days? Even though our Little Jade Capital can't compare to your high heavens, it's still considered a tranquil place that is hard to find. Seeing the ultimate arts of Little Jade Capital these few days has widened my horizons and allowed me to gain much benefit. However, since my masters have come forth to challenge Old Human Emperor, I cannot miss it, said Xianxia. Hermit Qingyu didn't urge him to stay anymore. Xianxia brought Jingyan, Yu Lu, and the rest of the girls down the mountain. They came to a pleasure boat, which they boarded swiftly. It sailed through the sky that was as smooth as a water mirror, creating ripples as it went into the distance. When it left Little Jade Capital, the sky that was like a water mirror disappeared, and the ripples also vanished without a trace, becoming a true sky. The pleasure boat slowly sailed through the sky into the distance. Butcher threw a glance at Blind, who smiled. I can't see even if you throw glances at me. I'm a blind man. Senior brother Qingyu, old Taoist, old monk. Us brothers will be leaving the mountain too. Hermit Qingyu immediately said, Senior brothers are also people who have achieved the Tao. So why not stay in Little Jade Capital? The world of mortals is muddy. So why do you have to get yourself dirted? Butcher shook his pig slaughtering knife, which expanded in the wind, transforming into a door-sized blade that leaned against his shoulder. He smiled. I'm a butcher, and would you allow me to open a butchery here? If I can't sell meat and earn money, am I going to drink the northwest wind? Hermit Qingyu's face froze, and Blind waved his hand. With so much spring in the garden, how can it be contained? Meeting now, need we have known each other before? The most precious time is priceless. Senior brother Qingyu, no need to see me out. Hermit Qingyu was stunned. While he tried to understand what those poem lines meant, Butcher and Blind walked out of Little Jade Capital. Butcher's voice came from the water mirror sky. Blind, your first sentence means that we are leaving, right? Which is why the spring can't be contained, which also means that Little Jade Capital can't hold us back. The second sentence should be a polite formula, saying how strangers coming together by chance, chatting through the night about path, skills, and divine arts end up as friends. The third sentence is even more remarkable. It means that we have urgent matters and have to go as soon as possible. Therefore, the most precious time is priceless. Is what I said right? Blind sounded proud. Butcher, you're indeed my soulmate. This is indeed what my 3 poem lines meant. That guy deaf keeps saying I'm frivolous, but how can he understand my brilliant expression of emotions? With great admiration, Butcher praised him. You are indeed getting more and more talented. Your feelings are like poems. Levin Hermit Qin Mu stunned. Even the old Taoist and the eminent monk were dumbfounded. Hermit Qin Mu was dumbstruck. Old Tao Master and Old Rulai were also akin to wooden chicken. Not long after Butcher and Blind left, a voice suddenly came from far away. The current human emperor has come to visit Little Jade Capital. Hermit Qin Mu's heart trembled violently, and he dared not be negligent. He hurriedly beat the bronze gong, and the sound of it reverberated throughout Little Jade Capital. Sagely elders came out from the celestial mountains. They flew over with immortal breath rising in spirals as they came to Hermit Qin Mu's side. Everyone looked at the water mirror in the sky and saw a black lump flying over, creating ripples on its way over. Hermit Qin Mu trembled his sleeves as if he was shaking off dust. But Little Jade Capital was the sacred ground of immortals. So from where could there be dust? Hermit Qin Mu took a step forward and raised his hands high above his head. The black lump that was plain and ordinary fell into his hand. Hermit Qin Mu then took a step back and placed his hands down. The other old immortals of Little Jade Capital immediately came forward to take a look with solemn expressions. Human Emperor's seal. We are honored by your presence, Human Emperor, please. As they said that, they saw a dragon Qilin dragging its huge tummy to carefully walk through the water mirror sky. The tummy created ripples as it touched the water surface. An adorable and clever little girl was sprawled beside the ear of the dragon Qilin. She said softly, "Fatty dragon, suck in your tummy." The dragon Qilin did as asked and straightened himself to walk forward majestically. However, he only took a few steps before his tummy relaxed and smacked the water mirror with a boing. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 343. Secret of Little Jade Capital. This water mirror sky of Little Jade Capital is indeed extraordinary. Qin Mu examined the water mirror sky under the dragon Qilin's feet and exclaimed in admiration. This thing was very marvelous. When looking from the bottom, one could see an azure blue sky during the day and a starry sky during the night. However, when one came above the water mirror, they would see another world. The water mirror sky lifted Little Jade Capital up and separated it from the world. When standing above and looking down, one could see the clouds floating past mountains, sometimes revealing their terrain and long rivers that looked like dragons. What is this water mirror sky made out of? Qin Mu suddenly jumped down from the dragon Qilin's back and stretched out his hand. What he touched was actually like a real world. He scooped up some water with his hands, and he could actually hold it in his hands. It would even flow out from the crevices between his fingers. Qin Mu stood up and stamped his feet. The surface of the water mirror then rippled outwards. Weird. This isn't water nor is it air. What exactly is this made out of? He was becoming more and more astonished. Could there still be materials I don't know about in this world? No, I have to get to the bottom of this. He was full of excitement. After having learned to forge from mute for so many years, it was already a habit for Qin Mu to study a material he hadn't seen before upon encountering it. He opened Cyan Heaven's eyes to study the structure of the water mirror sky in detail, trying to find how it was formed by the rune markings. However, to his disappointment, he couldn't find them. This is impossible. Water mirror sky is clearly a treasure, and since it's a treasure, it requires rune markings to increase its power. It's impossible for there to not be a single rune marking. Qin Mu was stunned. He had seen the sealing techniques of gods before, for example, the beehive seals in the underground space of Ghost Valley. Within them, there had been flickering rune markings. Could the forging technique of this water mirror sky surpass the methods of gods? How could he not see any rune markings? The dragon Qilin had already reached Little Jade Capital and ascended onto a flying island. Xianxia turned back to take a look, only to see Qin Mu still playing with water on the water mirror sky. She couldn't help smiling. This cult master and human emperor Qin may seem mature, but he is still a kid at heart. Hermit Qin Mu immediately came forward and raised human emperor's seal high up in the air. He looked towards the dragon Qilin's back and saw a mother and daughter as well as village chief who was like a human stick. Everyone hesitated for a moment. Hermit Qin Mu smiled. Human emperor, please take back your precious seal. Village chief flew down from the dragon Qilin's back with the rocking chair, but he didn't take the human emperor's seal. He shook his head. I'm no longer the human emperor. I have abdicated and passed the responsibilities to the next generation. Hermit Qin Mu hurriedly looked at that mother and daughter, hesitating for a moment. The current human emperor is a woman? It's no wonder then that this woman doesn't look weak and is already cult master level. It's extraordinary. However, she doesn't look like a person of Middle Earth, but like she comes from West Earth. There was no lack of women among the previous human emperors, but Xianxia was from a tribe in West Earth, and this made him feel strange. However, the tribes in West Earth were also human, so they could also become human emperors. Wanderer Qin Yu and the old immortals of Little Jade Capital greeted Xianxia and Xianxia, who immediately smiled. I'm not the human emperor, fellow seniors. Don't scare me. I can't handle this. Hermit Qin Yu looked at Xianxia and revealed a troubled expression. Xianxia knew why they were mistaken and smiled again. The human emperor is behind. Hermit Qin Yu and the rest of the old immortals of Little Jade Capital looked toward the water mirror sky and saw a youth that was playing with water. Their faces couldn't help turning black. For this youth to be the human emperor, this little girl might be better off. Qin Mu examined the water over and over again, but he still couldn't see its structure. He then sneakily took out a small jade bottle to store some of the water. He stuffed the cork back into the bottle and put it inside his taotai sack, ready to study it in detail when he had the time. This method of forging a treasure was not as simple as striking metal. It was somewhat similar to Mute's treasure, a forging method that left no fixed shape and was thus worthy to be studied. Mute's treasure has no fixed shape, and he could forge black gold and black iron into treasure that had no fixed shape or state, reaching the level where he could transform them at will. Qin Mu was still far from this realm. No one should notice that a little water is missing. The youth raised his head and saw a bunch old sage-like elders looking at him with a dumbstruck expression. Qin Mu's expression froze, and he instantly laughed loudly, beaming up at them. He clasped his hands in a greeting. The current human emperor pays his respects to fellow senior brothers and sisters. Sorry to disturb the peace of seniors. I feel bad about it. The old immortals all returned the greeting. Hermit Qin Yu rose and said, Please take human emperor's seal back. That's right, the water mirror sky of our little jade capital. Could human emperor please? Old Dao Master, Old Rulai. Both of you senior bothers are actually here as well. Qin Mu caught the human emperor's seal and stuffed it into his taotai sack. While laughing loudly, he walked over to Old Dao Master and Old Rulai. Senior brothers have also come here to become immortal? That's good. That's good. You can be free from your worries. Old Dao Master and Old Rulai immediately returned his greeting. Old Rulai smiled. Old Taoist and I are now free from our burdens and don't have much time left. Coming to this peaceful land to spend our final years is also a good thing. Old Dao Master smiled. Could human Emperor Qin also want to be an immortal that ignores the world affairs? If you are willing, it would be the fortune of the world. Qin Mu shook his head. I'm duty-bound, so how can I dare to shirk my responsibilities? Old Dao Master and Old Rulai greeted village chief with a smile as well. Senior brother has abdicated the position of human emperor and even left great ruins. Could you be wanting to become a carefree immortal in Little Jade Capital as well? Village chief shook his head and said bleakly, Muir is just afraid I will be lonely in the village by myself, so he's bringing me wherever he goes. Hermit Qin Yu came forward with a smile. Old human emperor, new human emperor, and also 3 Dao friends, this way please. Qin Mu followed him to a celestial mountain, where the scenery here was magnificent and beautiful, having a different kind of flavor to it. The celestial mountains that were floating in the sky were connected by rope bridges which seemed to form a kind of wonderful formation that made the mountains float. Borrowing the law of heaven and earth, this kind of method doesn't seem to be from the mortal realm. Qin Mu's heart was greatly shaken. This kind of array belonged to a borrowing law whose degree of superiority reached an inconceivable extent. Even though Qin Mu wasn't a formation expert, he knew that all the formations in the world were required to abide by the law of behavior and have a source of energy to operate them. For example, Qin Mu had once thought of creating 9 Heavens True Origin cannons with Fire Heaven's Eyes to protect Saint Arrival Mountain. However, the medicinal stones that would be needed to maintain such formations would be massive, and so he could only drop the thought. The formation of the celestial mountains and rope bridges, in the meantime, borrowed the law from heaven and earth. It took the energy from heaven and earth, so there was no need for medicinal stones or pill furnace to provide it. In the attainments regarding formations, Little Jade Capital could be said be thousands of miles ahead of Eternal Peace Empire. Qin Mu wanted to study the formation of Little Jade Capital, but after how he had provoked those old immortals by stealing a bottle of water mirror sky, it wasn't a good time to strike right then. This Little Jade Capital is a little similar to my Heavenly Saint cult. The two of them use the same formation, so could they be related? Qin Mu's gaze flickered. Heavenly Saint cult's Saint Arrival Mountain was also floating in the sky and had formations protecting it that borrowed the law from heaven and earth. Heavenly Saint cult's great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures were extraordinary, but they still couldn't surpass Eternal Peace Empire in the path, skills, and divine arts. However, their teleportation technique was akin to a legendary divine art. It was something to which Eternal Peace Empire's spell divine arts had no hope of catching up. Little Jade Capital's water mirror sky showed that their method of forging had also reached an astonishing degree, being as marvelous as Mute's treasure with no fixed shape. It was obvious that Little Jade Capital had many techniques and ultimate arts that far surpassed those of the mortal realm. It was no doubt the number 1 sacred ground in the world. Hermit Qin Mu toasted village chief and said, "Dao brother went into seclusion in great ruins and disappeared for a few hundred years, and many people thought that you died. Now that the world is at peace, why does Dao brother have to come out again? Once you come out, people are going to be in a terrible situation again. If you didn't want to come out, how could Human Emperor have asked you out? The people of our generation have mostly died of old age. Even though some people were outstanding and had world-shaking cultivations, they were willing to bury their talent and die quietly of old age in this fake paradise. However, I don't want to die of old age like this. If I die, I want to die like a human emperor should, dying vigorously," village chief said indifferently. Hermit Qin Mu drank a sip of tea and smiled. "Dao brother, so what if we were outstanding? You were the number 1 in the world back then, one sword lighting up how many mountains and rivers? In regards to outstanding, how could we be compared to you, Dao brother? But what happened then? What did you become?" Village chief's eyes became sharp. Hermit Qin Mu was not frightened at all and placed down his cup. He said, "Old Rulai, old Dao master, me, Ling Jing, and these immortals all admired you back then. We admired you greatly and felt that your exploits could shake the world. But what a pity. Even the outstanding you were forced to such a state." Village chief was silent. Hermit Qin Mu sighed. "Your lofty aspiration was obliterated with your limbs. But not everyone is like you. We feel that staying here is pretty good as well. You are not a fish, so how can you know the happiness of a fish? I'm also not you, so I can't share your emotions." Village chief lifted up the teacup with his vital qi and slowly drank his tea. Hermit Qin Mu looked at Qin Mu and smiled. "Human Emperor Qin, Hermit has heard of your name before. You are also the sacred cult master of Heavenly Saint cult." Qin Mu's heart stirred, and he said, "Since you guys are immortals that stand aloof from worldly affairs, why do you still have to scout out the worldly affairs?" Hermit Qin Mu smiled and didn't explain. He had a feeling to try to keep him 1,000 miles distant from himself. "After Human Emperor finishes his tea, please leave Little Jade Capital." Qin Mu didn't drink the tea, but took out the golden book. "May Immortal please take a look at this book. I wonder if Immortal's heart will be moved." Hermit Qin Mu flipped open the golden book, and his face changed. His aura suddenly rose drastically before becoming calm once again. He flipped to the second page and then to the third page. After a moment, Hermit Qin Mu closed the book and pushed the golden book back to Qin Mu with a smile. It indeed moved my heart. Human Emperor Qin, please leave. Qin Mu was stunned. Anyone who saw this golden book would find it hard to stay calm, much less return the book to him. Yet this Hermit Qin Mu actually seemed to be unmoved, making everything he wanted to say useless. Immortal Qin Why? Just as Qin Mu said until this, Hermit Qin Mu gave him a deep look and said, all the previous human emperors were like this. It's hard to make a human emperor give up. In that case, let Hermit make things clear to human emperor. He stood up and asked, does human Emperor Qin have a sense of familiarity when looking at Little Jade Capital? Does it look like Heavenly Saint Cult's Saint Arrival Mountain? Qin Mu was stunned and couldn't help standing up as well. He indeed had a sense of familiarity. The thing that he felt was the most familiar was the formation Little Jade Capital used to borrow the law of heaven and earth. It was nearly the same as the one used in Saint Arrival Mountain. This is because Little Jade Capital and Saint Arrival Mountain come from the same source. Hermit Qin Mu looked at the majestic celestial mountains of Little Jade Capital and said softly, Heavenly Saint Cult Saint and the founder of our Little Jade Capital were both people from the same generation. They walked out from the same place. Not only Heavenly Saint Cult and Little Jade Capital. He turned back to look at Village Chief while putting emphasis on each word he voiced. The first generation human emperor from Hall of Human Emperors also came from there. Furthermore, Little Jade Capital, Saint Arrival Mountain, and Hall of Human Emperors are fragments from the same place. Dao brother who has gone to Hall of Human Emperors before should know very well what kind of place that is, right? Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 344. Crumble. Qin Mu's brain was blown, and all kinds of thoughts surged through his mind, turning it into a mess. Even his ears were buzzing. What Hermit Qin Mu had revealed was simply too astonishing, just too unbelievable. Little Jade Capital, Heavenly Saint Cult, and Hall of Human Emperors actually came from the same source in the same era. They were created by people who had walked out from the same place. Not only that, these three sacred grounds were actually the fragments of the same place. Qin Mu turned around to look at Village Chief. His expression was normal, without any fluctuations. It was as if Hermit Qin Mu's world-shaking words were not enough to move his heart. Or more likely, he had already known the connection between the three sacred grounds, so the words held no shock value for him. Old Rulai and Old Dao Master, however, were shocked. It was obvious that these two previous leaders of two big sacred grounds didn't know the inside story. The origin of those two sacred grounds was even more ancient, but not all history got recorded. Hermit Qin Mu pulled his gaze away from Village Chief and looked at Qin Mu. As he smiled, there was surprise in his expression. Looks like Old Human Emperor didn't tell you any inside information. You have also not been to Hall of Human Emperors. Young Human Emperor, you should take a trip there. You'll learn many secrets in that place. Qin Mu composed himself and said solemnly, May Immortal Qin Mu clarify. Hermit Qin Mu looked at Village Chief whose expression was like an old well. Hermit Qin Mu smiled. If you are not saying, I shall meddle in your affairs, even if it's not my place. Human Emperor, please follow me. He walked down the mountain and Qin Mu followed. Village Chief also quietly floated behind the two of them. Xianxia hesitated for a moment, then pulled back Xianxia while shaking her head. We shouldn't dabble into the affairs of Middle Earth. Xianxia couldn't understand, but Xianxia had her own worries. The matters of True Heaven Palace were already giving her a headache, yet the matters of Middle Earth were even more terrifying. She could sense that some secrets were better off not known. Old Dao Master and Old Rulai looked at each other, and Old Dao Master smiled. We are already free from our burdens and have become immortals of Little Jade Capital. Let not learn any more secrets so we don't spoil our frame of mind. Old Rulai took a look at him and said, What that golden book records in the method to connect the divine bridge. Is Dao Friend's heart not moved? So what? Old Dao Master said leisurely. Where's the person that created the method to connect the divine bridge now? Old Rulai was stunned and laughed loudly. He didn't plan to follow after them as well. All the previous human emperors failed, so there's no need to join in the fun. As for the dragon Qilin, he also didn't follow after them. He sprawled out to the side, began to snore, which sounded like thunder striking the land. "You will be eaten," Xianxia whispered in his ears. The dragon Qilin immediately raised his head and looked around cautiously. When he saw Qin Mu not around, he said to the little girl, "I will exercise after taking a nap." Xianxia actually believed him. Qin Mu followed Hermit Qin Yu across the long rope bridge and passed by a few celestial mountains until they came to a particular one. Hermit Qin Yu led them up to the mountain peak through an extremely ancient hall. It seemed to not have been repaired for many years and was a little dilapidated. The walls were broken, and there were not many pillars that were supporting the ceiling. It was as if they had been destroyed in the fires of war. That huge hall was called Hall of Historical Records. The writings on the horizontally inscribed board were slightly blurry, but Qin Mu could still see that the person who had written those 4 words had extremely high attainments in calligraphy and painting. The words, Hall of Historical Records, had a profound meaning of history as a feeling of transformation swept into one's face from the words. During founding Emperor era, Hall of Historical Records was a famous place. Hermit Qin Yu walked through the hall, but there were no books there. Only rows of ancient bookshelves were left. The interior of the room they were in had a circular shape, which was very vast. Qin Mu saw numerous shelves placed on the circular walls, so anyone who wanted to read them would have to take a walk around. However, it was a pity that all the books were gone. Many books in this place were destroyed in the fires of war, while the remaining books were moved to other halls to preserve them. The group of immortals that founded Little Jade Capital had at first planned to tear down Hall of Historical Records, but in the end, they found it meaningful to let it remain, so they didn't touch it. Hermit Qin Yu went to walk the wall, past the rows of empty bookshelves, his hand caressing them. Qin Mu followed after him, slightly stunned. A magnetic force came from the wall and drew his body toward it, allowing him to be able to walk freely on the wall. Those immortals that founded Little Jade Capital were in charge of recording the history during founding Emperor era. Not only during it, but also the time before it. Because of them recording everything, we can see the failures in history and know the dangers that come with them. That's why when founding Emperor era was obliterated, they moved out of Hall of Historical Records to found Little Jade Capital, this sacred ground. Little Jade Capital is far from the mortal realm and doesn't participate in worldly affairs. We only quietly float outside the mortal realm to record the prosperity and decline of the world. Does Human Emperor know where Hall of Historical Records used to be located in founding Emperor era? Qin Mu shook his head. Hermit Qin Yu walked to the domed roof with his head facing the ground and legs moving over the roof. In that case, does Human Emperor know the meaning of Jade Capital? It's the capital in which Celestial Emperor lives, said Qin Mu. Hermit Qin Yu sighed. That's right, the capital city where Celestial Emperor lives. Jade Capital is Celestial Heavens. The name Little Jade Capital is used to commemorate the capital in which resides Celestial Emperor. The history recorded in Hall of Historical Records was actually for Celestial Emperor to read. Qin Mu's heart was greatly shaken, and he stared blankly at him while muttering, "Little Jade Capital is from Jade Capital?" "That's right. Little Jade Capital is from Jade Capital." Hermit Qin Yu turned around and looked away from him to glance at Village Chief. He said in a solemn voice, "Little Jade Capital comes from the capital city of founding Emperor era, Jade Capital. Hall of Human Emperors is also from there, as well as Saint Arrival Mountain. They are all fragments of Jade Capital, the ones that created the 3 big sacred grounds, no matter if they were the immortals of Little Jade Capital, the first generation Human Emperor of Hall of Human Emperors, or Saint Woodcutter of Heavenly Saint Cult. They were all from founding Emperor era's Jade Capital." Village Chief's eyes sparkled. "Since we are all from the same source, why won't Little Jade Capital lend a hand? Human Emperor Qin is also the cult master of Heavenly Saint Cult. Based on sentiment and reason, your Little Jade Capital should support us with your fullest might." Hermit Qin Yu walked down from the domed roof and shook his head. "Old Human Emperor, your magnificent aspirations are hard to eliminate. You are still so stubborn and pig-headed, swallowing ancient learning without digesting it. I really want to show you the history recorded in Little Jade Capital. I really want to show you the cruelty of it and crush all your beliefs, to see you crawl on the floor and cry helplessly, to see you devastated and void of life. He let out a shaky breath and then added indifferently, I don't need to do this, because I just need to let you see a few stone statues and you will crumble. He walked out Hall of Historical Records and looked at a celestial mountain nearby. Qin Mu and village chief also left Hall of Historical Records, side by side. The clouds above the celestial mountain far away were rising in spirals, and the celestial rays were like rainbow sashes surrounding the majestic stone statues. These stone statues had multifarious ambience, and it wasn't known which heavenly work had sculpted them. Hermit Qin Mu walked down the celestial mountain and headed towards the direction of a rope bridge. They came to a celestial mountain with stone statues, and the corner of Qin Mu's eyes suddenly twitched. He saw a stone statue with the getup of a woodcutter and a stone hatchet in his hand. It was very tall, as if the person had been a giant. The woodcutter was sculpted to be remarkably lifelike. He didn't seem like something sculpted, but a petrified human. This is the saint which heavenly saint cult worships. He is the woodcutter who imparted his path on the rock. Hermit Qin Mu looked up at woodcutter's stone statue and said, after he imparted his path, he was completely disheartened and came to Little Jade Capital. Like the immortals who founded Little Jade Capital, he chose to turn into a stone statue here. Look, where's his gaze looking? Qin Mu's heart shuddered, and he croaked, Great ruins. He's looking toward great ruins. That was once his homeland, but that place had become a barren land at the time. He couldn't do nor change anything. Qin Mu's words were like knives into Qin Mu's heart. The man's ordinary words were like the most terrifying divine art that could destroy his will. The previous cult masters of your heavenly saint cult were all outstanding, but which one's attainments surpass those of woodcutter? So what if he is your saint? Wasn't he disheartened to the point he chose to become a stone statue in Little Jade Capital? He walked to the second stone statue, which had the appearance of a scholar. The man's gaze was bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind. He held a scroll in his hand, but even though it was open, his gaze was not on it. He was also looking at great ruins. This is one of the immortals that founded Little Jade Capital. He was one of the historians in charge of Hall of Historical Records during founding emperor's era. Hermit Qin Mu then walked to the third stone statue. This is also a historian from Hall of Historical Records. There's also him and her. He walked past those stone statues and came to one that was extremely tall and large. It had a presence that was extraordinary heroic, and the man's hands were propped on a sword which was stabbed into the ground. The statue's gaze was aimed into the distance, in the direction of great ruins. Their homeland had turned into ruins, and no matter how gallant or fierce they were, their magnificent aspirations were all crushed. Hermit Qin Mu raised his head and revealed a serious expression. That person during the ancient era when founding emperor era was destroyed tried his best to save the world. But he who struggled for the human race to survive couldn't help becoming disheartened as well, turning into a rock here. Old human emperor, among the corpses of the past human emperors in your hall of human emperor, hasn't one always been missing? He's right here. Hermit Qin Mu's expression turned sorrowful as he said, He's right here. Village chief's mind was blown as he raised his head to look at the extraordinary majestic stone statue. The founder of Human Emperor Hall, the first human emperor, the one who saved countless big and small sects, saving the seeds for the future civilizations, the man who was revered by all sects as the emperor of the human race, the person who founded Hall of Human Emperor, yet this legend had lost his drive in the end as well. He had turned into a stone statue in Little Jade Capital. A rumbling came from village chief's heart. It was the sound of his persistence and certainty crumbling. It was akin to that day all those years ago. All that he persisted on and all his beliefs suddenly crumbled, turning him back into the helpless old man whose limbs had been severed. He wanted to struggle, but he had no hands to grab onto anything. He wanted to stand, but he had no legs. He could only squirm on the ground. That was what he was back then. Only after Qin Mu had come to disabled elderly village that he slowly walked out of that helplessness and despair. Yet the moment the god in his heart crumbled, he was thrown right back into that swamp of misery. His eyes became hazy, and he wanted to stretch out his hands to grab something, but he couldn't grab onto anything. He collapsed on the ground and wanted to stand up, but he couldn't. Qin Mu hugged the white-haired and helpless old man. Muer! The previous human emperor cried out, begging, "Let us return to disabled elderly village, let's return, let's not come out anymore. Return human emperor's seal to me. Return it to me. I can't let you walk my old path. I need to bring it to my grave. You can't handle this responsibility." Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 345. So what? It was Qin Mu's first time seeing village chief so helpless and in such despair. He hugged him like he was holding onto a floating ring, begging him to bring him home, to disabled elderly village, to his own little world. Qin Mu truly couldn't believe that this terrified and devastated old man was actually the expert that had taught and educated him. He had never imagined that the powerful village chief could be so easily struck down. Village chief always said that he was too powerful, yet all his beliefs had been so easily crushed. When village chief had been struck the first time, he went to disabled elderly village to become a disabled old man whose heart and ambitions were crippled. If old Ma, apothecary, mute, and the rest didn't come to join him there, it was hard to imagine what he would have become. Qin Mu still remembered the sight of village chief all alone after apothecary, and the rest left the village. The dispirited village chief just sat at the village entrance, letting the wind and rain batter him, the darkness wash over him, and his beard grew frantically. All of his happened because he didn't feel like moving. He didn't care about his appearance and didn't eat or drink. It was as if he wanted to rot right there and then. Yet the village chief had to have been even more dispirited when he'd been struck down the first time. At that time, it had been his personal failure that had led him to lose all interest in life, until he became no better than a walking corpse. Yet right then, what had struck village chief was not his personal failure, but the failures of the previous human emperors and that of the first generation's human emperor. Qin Mu could feel the despair of the once great man. He was like a frightened child that wanted to escape into his own world to huddle up and lick his wounds, or maybe just hide in a dark corner where no one would see as he rotted away. Without experiencing this kind of failure, it was hard to understand what village chief was feeling. Hermit Qin Yu looked over from nearby, his eyes filling with pity as he sighed. He hadn't wanted to strike the old human emperor like this, but Qin Mu, this new human emperor. He wanted to give this brat who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth a severe lesson, to let him know that all he was seeking and all the responsibilities he took upon himself were nothing but a joke in the end. All his hopes and hard work would lead to nothing. Yet his blow didn't land on Qin Mu, but his old friend, who was left devastated. The two of them had interacted a lot during their youth. Back then, village chief had invited him down the mountain, and he had agreed and went down, but so what? He had returned to little jade capital covered in injuries. Even his heart had been wounded. From then on, he was disheartened, and all his hot-bloodedness had been washed off. In the years after, he had read through all kinds of records in little jade capital and knew much more about the history. The greater his knowledge became, the less of the youth that went down the mountain was left in him. When Qin Mu came to see him with the technique that could patch the divine bridge and allow one to become God, he was indeed moved for an instant. His dormant blood had once again become hot, but right after it cooled down. So what? Even if he patched up his divine bridge, could he become stronger than the immortals who founded this place? So what if old human emperor managed to patch his divine bridge? Could he become stronger than the human emperor who founded Hall of Human Emperors? So what if Qin Mu became a god? Could he be stronger than heavenly Saint Cult's Saint Woodcutter? So what? Hermit Qin Yu was slightly stunned when he heard Qin Mu's voice. The youth repeated his words once more and smiled at the disheartened village chief. So what? Grandpa village chief. So what if they failed? Naive child. Hermit Qin Yu broke out in laughter and shook his head. The current human emperor is still a naive child who likes to play with water. Back in the day, I was also hot-blooded like you, a naive child. Qin Mu smiled. They failed, the previous human emperors and Grandpa village chief. But so what? When the first human emperor failed, Wasn't there a second human emperor? When he failed, wasn't there a third one? Village chief, even if you failed, isn't there still me? Village chief was stupefied. His white hair swayed as he shook his head. I don't want you to become like me, he said in a sob. The him then was just an ordinary old man and not the human emperor that could rebuke the heaven and earth. He was not that sword god whose sword skill had reached the realm of the path. He was just a crippled old man who wasn't willing to let his child follow in his footsteps. I'm the overlord body, have you forgotten? Qin Mu said with a smile. The only overlord body, and I was raised by all of you. Isn't that enough? Overlord body? Village chief laughed and cried at the same time. Overlord body. It's my sin. Mu'er, let us go home. Okay? I beg of you. Qin Mu's vital qi surged out and lifted the elder into his arms. His smile was radiant like the morning sun in early spring. It seemed to be able to drive away all the dark clouds in others' hearts, bringing them warmth and hope. Overlord body will never admit defeat, never accept death. Qin Mu had an indescribable infectiousness to his voice when he straightened his back and spoke with new confidence and certainty. I will surpass all of you and stop always being the number 2 in the world. I will surpass you in sword skills and become the sword god, reaching the extremes in sword path. I shall surpass Grandpa Apothecary in the art of healing, Grandpa Cripple in speed, Grandpa Mute in forging treasure, Grandpa Deaf in the path of painting, Grandpa Ma in fist skills, Grandpa Butcher in knife skills, Grandpa Blind in divine eyes, and Granny C in divine arts. I will be the number 1 in the world. Hermit Qing Yu laughed loudly. Human emperors' ambitions are laudable, but can you surpass these stone statues? Can you surpass those in great ruins? Even if you can you surpass founding emperor? His voice gradually became sterner as if he was lecturing a small boy. You are only a naive child that has ambitions, but has never been faced setbacks or trials, so go back and play with water. Isn't it good to be an ordinary human and live an ordinary life? You can't yet understand the world of adults. Qin Mu raised his head to look at the stone statues and said calmly, if I don't work hard and strive for success, I will naturally not surpass the first human emperor. But if I push myself one step at a time, there will be a chance, there will be hope. If I don't work hard and strive for success, but only think about failure all the time, of course I won't have shit. He took a glance at Hermit Qing Yu. Immortal Qing Yu, since you are an immortal, will you die? Hermit Qing Yu shook his head. There's no immortal that won't die. What can you leave behind? Asked Qin Mu. Hermit Qing Yu said, I didn't bring anything when I came to life, so I can't bring anything when I leave either. Qin Mu revealed a smile. But the immortals of Little Jade Capital left behind stone statues, and so did the first human emperor and Saint Woodcutter. But are they truly dead? During nighttime in Great Ruins, I saw a stone statue of a heavenly king ride the dragon Qilin to slay divine dragons. I saw stone statues reviving to go into battle once again. I have even seen them give off divine light at night to protect the people of Great Ruins. But what will you leave behind after you die? He didn't wait for Hermit Qing Yu to reply and answered for him. Nothing. Hermit Qing Yu was angered, and he shook his head while smiling. You are still a little child who only knows how to brag, not understanding the gains and losses. You will get bruised all over and break your head, your body, and yourself until you are like me and the old human emperor. When that time comes, your family will be eradicated, leaving you all alone, without even a child to send you off. At that time, you will come to the realization that my words were gems of wisdom. Qin Mu raised his head to look at the stone statue and said with a calm expression, they will revive, and when there's hope in this world once again, they will come back to life and continue to fight for hope. But when that time comes, will immortal Qing Yu be able to come back to life to fight? He won't, because you are already dead. Furious, Hermit Qing Yu took a step forward. His clothes moved by themselves, without the wind, and his hair fluttered as he shouted, even if you are the human emperor, what can you do? Qin Mu took a glance at him. I'm the overlord body. There is no overlord body in this world. Hermit Qing Yu shouted out at an ear-deafening volume. What the F***CK is an overlord body. There's absolutely no such constitution. Who are you trying to fool? This world has an overlord body. Village chief suddenly opened his mouth, and Hermit Qin Mu was slightly stunned when he shifted his gaze at him. Village chief struggled free from Qin Mu's vital qi and floated up with a solemn face. There's an overlord body in this world. An overlord body from Carefree Village. Hermit Qin Mu's heart was greatly shaken, and he looked at Qin Mu in a hurry while crying out, "What you mean is?" His surname is Qin of Founding Emperor. Village chief seemed to have lost his depression from earlier, but his tone still had a hint of exhaustion. Qin of Carefree Village, the Qin that had swept all 8 lands and united the world. He is the overlord body, the matchless overlord body. Carefree Village? Hermit Qin Mu's heart was a little flustered, and it took him a moment to compose himself. He asked, "Qin of Carefree Village? Qin of Founding Emperor? That golden book is from Carefree Village? Carefree Village still has someone from Qin family?" Village chief nodded. "We can't do it, but the Qin family can." Hermit Qin Mu revealed an excited expression, but soon hid it away once more. He chuckled. Old Dao brother seems to not have much understanding of Founding Emperor era. What can the Qin family do? Aren't they just a bunch of failures like us? Carefree Village is merely some people trying their best to stay alive. What's the difference between them and our little jade capital? Actually, you don't even believe it yourself. Village chief was silent for the moment, then suddenly opened his mouth. There's hope, even if it's a slither. Hermit Qin Mu's expression was apathetic as he said, "Don't take Carefree Village to pressure me. There is no overlord body in Carefree Village. There's no overlord body in this world." "Moore can prove it to you," Village chief said solemnly. "He can prove he is the one and only overlord body." Hermit Qin Mu laughed loudly and shook his head. "Dao brother, are you only left with the ability to say lies? Overlord body Overlord body." His voice suddenly became incomparably resounding and spread through Little Jade Capital. "Disciples of Little Jade Capital, come over here." Qin Mu was slightly stunned. Hermit Qin Mu's face became solemn, and he ruthlessly stared over, his sleeves trembling. "Prove it to me. My Little Jade Capital has only groomed 3 disciples, but defeat them, and I'll go down the mountain with you." Qin Mu flexed his muscles, revealing a smile while raising his eyebrows. "Immortal Qin Yu, you were the one who said it. 3 is too little. Why don't all of you immortals of Little Jade Capital seal your cultivations and come at once? Dao Master and Rulai can come as well." His aura suddenly burst forth, and he roared ruthlessly, "I'll beat you all to death."